Hello, welcome to the Comic Binge. We are back with finally an episode with Sketchcraft himself, Rob. If I can't ever talk, I can't even say it, Rob. I'm sorry. But we're back. We're back finally. It's been a long time, and rightfully so. Rob is giving me tons of shit about not like planning well enough and spontaneously enough to get this show on the road. But I've been wanting. Go ahead.
It's been a year, dude.
Go ahead. Has it been a year?
Yeah, because I just got the corgi, and I was like, check out this puppy I just got. You know, and you're like, yeah, we'll do that show soon. And then now she's a year old.
Wow.
You're a busy guy. You're a busy dude.
Dude, it's been, with doing band stuff, last year it really ramped up, and like kid stuff. My kids in kindergarten now, and just life has definitely taken, and the binge has taken a step back a little bit just because of just like my time and everything. So like I used to do like 4 shows a month. Now I'm only doing like 2, maybe 3 at the most 3. So I've been keeping it at 2, pretty steadily. So that's another reason why we haven't done it in a while. But regardless, we're finally here. And I always love getting Rob on the show for many different reasons. But one, we share a similar age range of comic love, or at least we're in the zeitgeist of comics. Would that be appropriate? You think you would call that?
Sure.
Okay.
I think you were reading mostly Marvel though in the 90s, right?
Well, no. Well, we'll get into that because you'd be incorrect because I was reading mostly Marvel. Well, I guess it's a good time to talk about it. Okay, so for those who don't know, we are in fact talking about Gen-13,
right.
And that is what I've said in the title, which I'm assuming you wouldn't fight me too hard on, Rob, is probably the most 90s comic I think you could probably get, in my opinion. Would you agree to that or disagree?
That's subjective.
Sure.
But
it's up there. Top 5 at least?
I would say, how do I say this? Gen-13 is like when you get a pilot for a show and then it becomes something completely different, by the end of the first season. And, and I'm sort of thinking if you ever saw that show Rome, they kind of did that the first season.
I've heard of Rome. Yeah.
And to some extent, some people would say Deep Space Nine, although I don't quite agree with that, but some people would say that as well.
Okay. So here's so for those who don't know, like Gen-13 came out via Image/Wildstorm Productions, a Jim Lee company at the time. And this was and correct me if I'm wrong, because you would know way better than me. Was this J Scott Campbell's first like major work? Or did he cut his teeth on something else before this?
No, he started here. He did that talent search. Like they put up the talent shirts, and he submitted and they saw samples and picked them right up. I mean, even Rob Liefeld talked about how like that Campbell went to a convention right after that happened and showed Rob his work, and he was like, I want to hire you. He's like, well, Jim just hired me. He's like, mother. Of course Jim just hired you, So like came that close,
Do you know what's funny is, and again, I defer to you, but I see a lot of I feel that J Scott Campbell, maybe this has already been said about him already, but it feels like he's Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee merged into one.
No,
because I that's the way I see it, because he draws his ladies a lot like Rob.
Right,
they're very late.
You're missing a key component here, and it's Art Adams. He draws like Art Adams, and Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee were all pulling from Art Adams. Like
fair enough.
Specifically, like just go look at Long Shot or the New Fantastic Four, and then go look at Scott Campbell stuff, especially. Now, this first couple issues, he's doing more of the Jim Lee thing, but that's because they had a house style at the time. And you'll see by the 3rd issue what he was doing, because you can see I have a book that Comic Craft put out in 2004, and I did a whole video on it. It's on my channel, on the Sketchcraft YouTube
Okay,
channel.
cool.
I did it with Uncle Jer,
All right.
and we went through, and it's just an interview with J Scott from when he was a kid all the way through Danger Girl and Wildsiders, and so you see like he was drawing Mad Magazine caricatures every his whole school newspaper was filled with his like Batman Returns, Mad Magazine, Jack Davis kind of thing. And so he was mixing that, and he was mixing comics like Art Adams, and he was mixing Disney films and he even he won this art contest that was in Nintendo Power in '87. Because I remember when I was a kid, they did this contest in Nintendo Power called it was like design a video game contest, and everyone at school was like, "Oh man, how would you do it? How would you do it?" And I was in the 3rd grade, so I couldn't, you know what I mean? I could just dream. I really couldn't put down. But he won, and I remember looking at it like, this the kid won, one of us, and his artwork was in there. It was like Lock Arm or something like that, and it was like an RPG, and you could see all the Art Adams influences there, like the anatomy. It's really interesting to look at. But he said that the prize was like $1,000, and so he used that money to buy a Laserdisc player so he could freeze frame Disney animation films like Akira.
Wow.
And the Disney films, and so he was drawing from that. So he's mixing animation, comics, and caricature, So, like I said, by the time you get to Gen-13 issue 1, the full series, all those 3 things are, solidified.
See,
but
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So that's fascinating because I see definitely I totally see what you're saying about it goes from like Jim Lee like clone to this issue, which is radically different. And I have a funny story about this final issue of the miniseries, Rob, that you bring this up. But let me kind of go explain my my image, like my comic bookness at this time. So growing up, I was I've always been a big Marvel fan. Love Spider-Man's been my favorite character forever. It only makes sense when I explain this to you because also the X-Men. This is with Silvestri. This is before I really knew who Jim Lee was, but this is like during the Inferno saga. You have Silvestri, Walt Simonson on the books, and so I grew up on basically kind of not early, but Ron Friends stuff, and then like Todd McFarlane starts drawing Spider-Man, Venom stuff comes out, and then my brother and I get hooked on Spider-Man, Eric Larson, Todd McFarlane, and then we get hooked on Rob Liefeld's New Mutants and X-Force, Jim Lee's X-Men. Except you get where I'm going with all this, right?
Sure.
So obviously, when the image gets created, I'm like, oh, my favorite artists and writers, or basically artists, but you know what I'm saying. Like my favorite creators are at a whole different company now. So it was very exciting for me. So I actually branched off a lot from Marvel and DC. I was mostly Marvel. I didn't read much DC when I was a kid. A little bit of Batman. But I devoured a ton of Image comics growing up when I probably shouldn't have because of the content. Like Savage Dragon, I was an avid reader of Savage Dragon. Which and you're going to laugh, and hopefully it won't be a year from now, but a Savage Dragon show where we can get... Even start... it hasn't ended, right?
No, I'm on 2. I just picked up the latest issue. Got it right here.
All right.
Latest issue.
Wow.
That's 278.
Wow. I've got the first 20 issues.
I have 278 issues plus the hardcovers, the archives, the original trade paperback, and a bunch of the miniseries like the Jason Pearson stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Eric Larson stuff. I mean, but I read that. I mean, I was stoked for Cyberforce, Wildcats, Spawn, obviously. I mean, I read a lot, but as I was in middle school, so my money kind of so I would go in and out of series a lot. I'd go ahead and Savage Dragon, and then they'd have a Lowell miniseries, obviously, and then I'd go into Wildcats. Wildcats be gone off and on, it was in whatever.
Well,
so anyway,
this was the benefit of them not printing things on time for us as a consumers. We could space out some books.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Right.
It's crazy. You're not wrong. I mean, it actually did work a little bit that way. So I read mostly by the time Image was created, I read mainly Marvel and Image only. So I was an Image guy because of the creators like Jim Lee and Eric Larson and all that stuff. So like it's because of Marvel I read Image. But anyway, but as someone who, as you know, if you're the viewer watching this and you grew up in the 90s reading comic books, you also knew of the very well-known magazine called Wizard, right? Wizard magazine was, I liked Wizard because it kind of kept me in the loop of things, and they hyped the shit out of Gen-13, man. They they must have had money writing on this or something, because they just pimped the shit out of this book.
People don't know, like Jim and them took out these full-page ads that were just the characters, like pinups of the characters, and it would be like Fairchild, and then like an article would go by and it was like grunge, and then an article would go, and then it was like the double page or a full-page ad, for the actual. At the time, it was called Gen X.
I remember that. Yeah.
You can even see it. There's like in the book, there's X designs on the armor of the bad guys and their vehicles. So clearly, like all of that was done before they were like, getting their Marvel DMCA. Like, don't you call it Gen X? Because it ran initially as Gen X.
Because I remember that. I was going to ask you because you know this. Because I remember there was obviously a connection between Gen-13 and Generation X, and I don't remember. I remember there was something that was a controversial thing between there. I forgot what it was, and I totally feel dumb because I do remember that vaguely hearing about that now. Was Generation X created at the same time as Gen-13, or was it as a byproduct of Gen-13 because of they tried to take the? That's what I thought.
What it was is that term generation. This all goes back to the '92 vote. And like the Rock the Vote, and with the midterms coming up in like 93, 94-ish. So all the Rock the Vote stuff was going out at the time, which I'm certain anyone under the age of 40 has no idea what I'm talking about.
I remember. But
that's when the term Generation X came into mainstream. And I'm certain everybody at Marvel, and Jim Lee, who's, basically Marvel adjacent, right, like up in the head, is like, I'm sure he was like, I can make my own mutants called Gen X, right? Because like it's Generation X, you can't really copyright that, right? I mean, I can see how they're like, that's a popular term, because this book clearly is trying to set up mutants, right, or their version.
Yeah, their version. Yeah,
the Gen Active. Which, by the way, by the time the Gen-13 full series starts, that idea is gone.
Really?
But, yeah, they're not even using Gen Active, and they're not doing. I mean, all that stuff's there, but it's not the focus. The focus is like fun adventure, meta humor. Like it's all the stuff that J Scott was probably consuming at the time, which was like liquid television and sketch shows and stuff. So like it's a lot of video games. Are all in there. So it's just this is the first two issues of this series are very much like Jim and Brandon Troy trying to do like their Chris Claremont, like your Days of Future Past opening, and like they're explaining you what Gen Active people are, and then there's 13 generations, which I don't know how that makes any sense in this universe, like 13 generations.
Yeah.
I don't know how that to go back 300 years, like, but by the time you get to the third issue, they're calling them SPBs. They're not really using Gen Active anymore, And then by the time you get to Generation X, the Gen X or the Gen-13 series, it's just like there's these fun bad guys and we're fun good guys. You know what I mean? And it's like it's got the Adam Warren like innuendo anime humor, which I'm certain J Scott was watching things like Project A-ko, like there's an anime called Project A-ko, which came out like in 89, 92, somewhere around there, and that was huge on Sci-Fi Channel around 93. And like Fairchild is like, you can basically, if you want to see what Fairchild kind of becomes, go watch Project A-ko, and you can come back and see, like this is them doing a bit of that. This super ultra strong, but then look, that's Ripley, right? So like, that
True. Yeah,
by
yeah.
the third issue, he's drawing her like Ripley with the gun, and this is like Campbell is always putting in movie references or game or pop culture references, which was not something Jim Lee and them were doing at all. If they were referencing
No,
anything,
yeah.
it was always like their heroes. Like, here's some Barry Windsor Smith, or like
Right.
he brings Wildstorm at this time, up until J Scott Campbell appears, is basically like Jim Lee trying to like making like a bunch of little Jim Lees, right? We got we're making a house style. It's the Jim Lee style, right? Which is fine. I bought him, but J. Scott Campbell's the first young kid who comes in and is like, I'm bringing the new stuff. I'm not, he wasn't like pushing 30. He's pushing, he's in his early 20s. So it becomes more humorous and fun. MTV, right? Like MTV,
Yeah.
Sci-Fi Channel, anime, and these covers just don't reflect that at all. It's pretty, I mean, like, she radically changes in this book.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Well, this whole I think you made a great point about how the house style gets shifted into J. Scott Campbell style, because randomly I was, I like you what we talked about, I would buy these random issues of different series, and Gen-13, because they pounded that freaking series in my head because of Wizard, and it must have been through, because they definitely pimped it out as like the hottest book out there was Gen-13, whatever. I finally picked up, for whatever reason, Rob, I picked up issue 5 when I was a kid. I had no idea what I was reading. I just wanted to see what Gen-13 was all about. And it was
first page.
right.
Got the booty shot.
Yeah, and it's the whole thing is overly sexualized. I mean, like with Bliss,
Not
I remember
really,
being
though.
like
it's cheesecake, It's Three's Company style humor. I mean, when we say sexualized, you got to remember, like, if you're 4 years younger than me, you're coming, like, Full House is like what you're used to experiencing on TV as a kid. Maybe you remember Alf.
Yeah.
Like the late.
I do remember
stuff.
Alf. Yeah.
Right. The late Reagan stuff. The George Bush stuff. Like Simpsons was the most risque thing when it came out. But I grew up with the 70s reruns because I left to my own as a kid. So I was watching Three's Company, Too Close for Comfort, way sexualized, and that's the stuff J. Scott Campbell grew up.
That's fair. That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
It's cheek. It's cheeky kind of humor,
Yeah, and that's a good point to keep reminding myself of, because it is of its time. You can't judge everything in a vacuum and hold to the same standards every generation, as time changes. We all know. I mean, it's impossible. Everything ages differently, and some better than others. But this definitely, Image Comics were it's all over the place. I mean, that also that sold. I mean, you can't tell me this cover of issue 1 is not like, trying to sell to a certain demographic. I mean,
right.
But again,
but I can go and show you Barbarella, right?
True.
Like, yeah. And so again, like, remember Campbell again, and he's growing up with Mad Magazine, and Mad Magazine had tons of sexual humor in it. Like my uncles had all the Mad magazines from the 50s on through like 1978 or 79. So they had, my uncle, he had the house that they all grew up in. It was 7 kids to a house. And his mother left it to him when my grandmother passed. And so they had a rec room, the one with the shag carpet and like black light.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd go in there, and that's where all the Mad magazines were. Tons of 70s sexual humor, So that's the Sheena Amazon woman ripped clothes, stuff, the issue woman,
right. Yeah. Well, and so I bought this issue, and by the time I get to, like, and I remember being like, this is, it took me a while to figure it out, but whatever. It didn't grab me. I mean, surprise of the century, the last issue doesn't grab me because I don't know what the hell's going on. But I did like these layouts, and I mean, even as a kid, I always liked like this stuff. This was cool. It's funny because as I read this now, for the show, I totally see what you're saying. By the time we get to this issue, this is radically different than we started off with issue 1 for the most part. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Like Grunge himself doesn't look like a Jim Lee drawing anymore.
And
like he actually
Fairchild starts to look more Disney. You know,
yeah,
the bell. She got the bell face.
The dope.
Yeah.
Well, one thing you mentioned about Art Adams that I totally I'm with you on is the faces. It feels like he definitely captures Art Adams' faces.
100%.
Because I remember I'm a big fan of New Fantastic Four, and I have the Long Shot series as well. But I grew up loving the New Fantastic Four, and I only see the way he draws the Invisible Woman. I 1000% see that in Fairchild. Like it's like it is very much the same thing. So you're on the money on that. So
he's also putting in like Appleseed swipes in these 4 seconds. There's actual pages I can show you. That's Appleseed. That's Appleseed. That's Appleseed.
So what's Appleseed again?
Appleseed was a manga. When it came to the States, it was published under Eclipse. I got all the issues down there, dude. Art Adams did the covers with watercolor paintings for the American release. Yeah, and Tom Orzechowski did all the lettering on those, and the lettering's fantastic. Some of the best lettering ever. But it was called Patlabor, I think, and then Appleseed. And so it was like this chick and her mech. It was like a buddy cop thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But there was all these big mech suits, and there's these layouts that did Shiro do that, or was it? I think it was Maz. I think it was Shiro. But don't quote me on. I'm not. But I know all the panels. So, so when I'm looking, I'm like, there's that one, this one, that one. So again, I'm certain like Jim and all them were into that too. So like there's a lot of commonality in mixing American and Asian art, cartooning and illustration.
Dude,
it comes together. Yeah.
I need to check out Appleseed. I've heard that name tossed around a lot.
Yeah, you'd like it, man. I mean, it's
okay.
It's very good. But it's not. How do I say? It's not like Akira where you're gonna be your mind's blown. It's just cool. It's cool.
Okay, for the record, this is gonna be sacrilegious. Maybe I don't love Akira like everyone else does. I've read the first 3 volumes. I like it.
You only read the first 3.
Yeah.
If you haven't finished it, then you can't speak to it.
That's fair.
I'm gonna be honest.
Hey, you do your thing. I told the guys in my book club that I read it for that I do want to finish it. I didn't like it initially, but I liked it more. I liked volume 3 a lot more than the other 2. So I did. Yeah, basically.
It's 1,000 pages of just the destruction of Tokyo.
Yeah, basically. Anyway, so yeah, my experience with Gen-13. I do. Funny enough, is it? I love what Gen-13 created then because I love Generation X's first run with was it Lobdell and Pachalo? Is that what's his name? Is always
yeah. It was Chris Pachalo. Mark Buckingham was inks on that, so they had a specific style. Like that combination gave you a version. It was very different than what people see from Pachalo's art today. It was closer
it's a lot more
to like Brian Boland, and like Paul Smith, somewhere around there more than
a lot more straight ahead, you could say, as much as he could probably be, maybe.
Yeah, I think the figure work was just different, and there was a lot of graphic design in the layouts as compared to
it was. I remember that first issue. I always really loved that first issue a lot. I think that was a really well done issue from like. As an introductory, like from the writing standpoint, the characters and the introduction of the characters in the drawing, like that picture of skin coming out of the panel with like the overhead panels overhead of it, chef's kiss, great layout. Anyway, Gen-13. So I bought this trade at a half price books for like $5, and I was like, this is a piece of history, right? And so I bought it. And I remember when we started talking, I know you're a big Image guy. I was like, I always knew I need to talk to Rob about this because you're going to have all the information, which I knew you would. And you did not disappoint so far. So great job, Rob. And if you're just joining us, go circle back, listen to Rob just spit fire about this history. It's fantastic. You're like a walking comic history from the '90s, man. It's awesome.
Well,
but
it's just that there's a lot. There's a lot of art-driven comics, and so
as they should be.
And so, I went out of my way to either find out or ask at Comic-Con, because I grew up in San Diego, so I go to Comic-Con '92, and then I go every year. And at the time, it was only 3 days, but I just wouldn't leave people alone, you know.
Right.
I had no money, so I just bugged people or looked at original artwork, you know. So I've seen a lot. If he sold these pages, I saw them in person, because I definitely saw all the Gen-13 animated designs he did that weren't used, like around '96 or '95. Yeah, I think Comic-Con '96 is when I saw them. '96, or I saw them in 2001. I can't remember. But anyway, like issue 3, like that right there, that particular image, which which is a CMYK JPEG because it's glowing. It doesn't quite look that neon green in the real comic.
You're right, it doesn't.
Folks should know, if you ever see neon colors on an image, it's because it was a CMYK JPEG and they didn't know. And it looked like that. Anyway, but that particular layout is, to me, where things completely change in terms of what J Scott Campbell is doing at Wildstorm and what Wildstorm's doing anywhere else. You know, like if this were, that's like, you could see that being like a typical Jim Lee layout. Like it could be Maul and back there could be Void, but he's look at the facial expressions. They're actually emoting. Each character is emoting according to who they are, you know? Like and even like the next few pages, there's one where like Grunge does he does the RoboCop. It's that bit from RoboCop where someone, and Batman, where they come around, the classic '80s bit where the bad guys come around the corner and then Batman goes, right? Right? And he's going, what? Like he's doing the what's hot.
Yeah.
And this is to get an idea like how far in advance this is in terms of put into a comic. They wouldn't make these jokes at Disney until like Emperor's New Groove. You know, like it wasn't until like Mulan and Emperor's New Groove where they're making these kinds of jokes in animated films, you know, in America. So this is way ahead of that by 5, 6, 7 years, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, I was really excited to read this series because it is, to me, an important piece of 90s comics, because it was the rage. It was the hottest thing in Image for so long. You know, I remember, you know, this was, you know, Wildcats was struggling with its shipping. You know, you had, you know, everyone struggling with their deadlines, and this series comes out and it pretty much takes everything over by storm, and then it kind of ends. And at the very end, you see Grunge being like, "We're coming back with a regular series," and I'm like, "Huh." And we'll get into like the posts of this miniseries a little bit, but it was a very like of its time, and a very popular book, which we'll get here in a second. But I'm assuming you obviously read it when it came out, you know, Rob. You know, did you like the story coming into it, or if you read it back then and then reading it now, like kind of tell me where you are kind of then and now compared to, you know, reading it experiences.
I wasn't enamored with the story when I first read it. I felt they were just doing like mutant flight, you know, but they didn't.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like when I hear someone call like the DC stuff metahumans. I don't think it sounds as cool as superheroes or mutants. You know, like
sure.
It sounds like some generic tabletop RPG that they want to say mutants, but they can't. So they're metahumans. Like, I don't, you know.
I dig it on DC. I get it, but I get your point too.
Yeah, and so you get to this stuff, and I was enamored. I thought the art was definitely what I would call alive. There's a lot of sort of like stiff, dead, you know, image art where it's just like guys with cross-hatching posing. But but my buddy kept picking it up, and he'd bring it over, and by the time you get to the third issue with the double page with the gatefold cover with Pitt and everything.
This is issue 4. Yeah. This is issue 4.
Issue 4. So by the time you get to issue 4, like that alone, I was like, well, I gotta buy it for the art now, you know, like by the time they get to issue 1, it's my kind of humor, you know, like
of the regular series.
Of the regular series, yeah.
Yeah.
But this just reads like everything Brandon Choi and Jim Lee were doing was like, we couldn't get Chris Claremont to come with us, so we can write like Chris Claremont. Like, no, not really. and
No.
it's doing that thing too, where like it's every issue it's doing that thing where it's like, if you haven't read the previous issue, we gotta explain it in this issue. And I'm like, you really don't, because not much happened, you know. Like, not a whole lot happened here, folks. Really, like
you're not wrong.
Started because the first issue starts on a chase sequence, and then the third issue, right? That's when they're running in the desert, right? The third issue, was it the second issue? No, it's the second issue. No, it's the third issue where they're run. No, it's the second issue. They're running. It opens up them running. You could have just started the first issue with the second issue, and lost nothing. Like you don't need them. They could have just been teenagers right? 18, 19-year-olds who escaped like the island or Logan's Run, a compound.
Right, yeah.
You didn't need to be like, I went to a college and then they got me to go here and now I had to escape. Like it's very like like that could have just been the first issue. You could take the first issue and just chuck in the bin and start with this and it would have been just fine.
You're not wrong, because it is really just setting up the history in the first like 3-4 pages, and then it's Fairchild in college getting dressed, and they
also have a problem, and this is a problem with teen books, is you don't have someone to latch on to. And by the third issue, they pull away the whole team, so you're with Fairchild, and they clearly were like, Fairchild, either Campbell, I get, because Campbell gets story credit by the third issue, right? And that's where things start to become very different. I'm willing to be him to say, make her the lead character. She's my Ripley, because clearly he's drawing her like an all Ripley like poses and stuff by then. So you're following her sneaking into the compound. But it's like we escape in this issue. The second issue, the guys go back. Yeah. She has to go get him out. Like, they could have all just been captured, and she could have been left on her own. Anyone who actually writes character, right, and not plot, because these are plot scripts. And when you're just focused on plot, what happens is a lot of times writers go, well, we got this, and then we got this, and then they'll go do this and this. They kind of think about it like A to B to C to to E.
Yeah.
What you got to really think about is, here's the setup. We're being chased down. What would they do? Okay, they're being chased by who? How would they react? What is the outcome of this? And then the outcome is they get captured. They should be captured by force. Maybe Fairchild escapes on her own or leaves them behind or something, or didn't get along with them, and then feels bad, goes back. There's just not like personal choice in these scripts, There's a lot of like, time to do this because now it's time to do that,
It's 1000% plot driven. It's not character driven by whatsoever, and which is a lot of comic books, but like Claremont. Case in point, what made him so good is he made everything character driven, but it served the plot. And there's a pro and a con, I think, to both those, to be honest. But Claremont was a master of interweaving character, choices and development, and pushing the narrative. And you can tell that's what they want to do, but they're not good at it.
They're trying to world build. And Image was weird this time because they're like, this is going to be like, Wildcats is like his X-Men, and Gen-13 is going to be like his New Mutants, I guess.
Whatever.
But they're not X-Men, they're not mutants. You know what I mean? And there isn't a set. Yeah, it's the universe before the characters. Essentially, and so.
Well, the problem is they try to do the Marvel and the Marvel method as far as like. Having the shared universe, because DC was much later in the shared universe. As far Marvel was the first, like, kind of like started from ground zero, the Fantastic Four, and then built off of that, and made them all interconnect. Image was, let's start 12 things at once, make them all interconnect in one universe, have them tie in together, and as we get like for instance, we have Pitt in the series. It's like, it's so forced that it does a disservice to the story.
Well, here's the problem they have with the Pit, and I felt this when I was a kid, and rereading this, I'm like, I had some good intuition there as a kid, and it was,
Mm-hmm.
If it's because I had already seen Akira, I was like, they should just have Timmy and Pitts outside trying to get back the kid, right? Like, and that's kind of what's happening here. But you could have started the first issue with Timmy, you know what I mean? And like he's like
Mm-hmm.
connected to this monster, and they're able to use it, somehow. But Timmy and Pitt aren't really. It's not a very well written character to begin with, so you don't really know what that relationship is or how it works. But let's just say, if it was more like the kid could control the monster, if they got the kid, then they got a drone, right? Like a military drone that could be
Oh,
used to take on
yeah.
other Gen active people, right?
Gen.
But they're called Gen active in the first two.
I know. You're right. Yeah,
it's
like,
all
yeah.
sexual innuendo because it was sexually active was the term. This is when they were teaching, and then they call them SPBs, which sounds like STDs.
But STDs,
like,
yeah.
It's like so superheroes now are like AIDS or the gonorrhea, right? Like, I got drunk and slept with Savage Dragon, and now I got this super.
Oh
which would
my
be
God.
funny, right? If Keith Giffen was writing all this, I think he could make that work, right?
Oh
but
my God.
we don't really have the talent of Keith Giffen behind the typewriter here, so.
No. But so reading it then you so obviously it's art driven. You got it for the art. So rereading it now, how is it as bad as you remember as far as like the story itself?
It's not bad. Look, there are bad comics to be had in the 90s, all right? There are. But Rob, what is the bad? Go read Brigade. Like, just get back to me on that.
I like some Brigade stuff though. Some of it wasn't terrible.
Come on now, right?
Oh, okay.
Did anybody ask for 2 team books from Rob Liefeld and Rob Liefeld clones? Like, no one asked for that, right?
That's fair.
So,
I read Newman too, by the way.
But Todd Knox bringing cartooning, so it's something different at that point, right? Anyway,
Fair enough.
Anyway, and there are on all sides. There's that whole like Blood Syndicate stuff at like DC, like.
Oh yeah. The Milestone stuff.
Right, and Marvel's tried to make Night Thrasher a thing. So, like there's plenty. Or remember Night Watcher, there's Spawn ripoff. Right?
Yeah, it was that Night Watch. Dude, the Spawn ripoff, he's an interesting character. He's a lawyer, I think.
So
anyway.
It's not bad so much as it's just generically boring. It's
true,
not doing any. It doesn't have a hook in the first 2. It's just selling you the house thing, in the way that like I was having a discussion with Uncle Jerk about Harbinger when it came out at Valiant, which was the first book I could get into, and he's like, yeah, but the art isn't that great. I'm like, but look at what's happening with the characters. Like, there's a lot of, like, if you look at movies like Chronicle or a lot of what stuff they were doing with maybe some of the boys and stuff, like Harbinger's doing that way before all that stuff, It just didn't have a flashy art style.
Did you ever read the relaunch back in the early like the late 2000s, like 2010, 8 or I think 11 around there, where Valiant came back and they relaunched Harbinger? Did you ever read those issues? I thought they were pretty good. I remember I binged the shit out of those things back in the day.
I read anything that the artist he ended up doing. I'm brain farting right now. Brilliant artist. He's the one that did Adam and Archer, the relaunch. He's brilliant cartoonist. Yeah, brilliant cartoonist. Anyway,
I'll check it out.
But look, the first 2 issues just bored me.
They are. Yeah,
I
rough.
started to notice by the 3rd issue, like the Ripley pose.
Yeah.
Like, and I started to notice like the Appleseed connections, and I'm like, oh, he's putting in things now. And then it was kind of cool to see Pitt in there, but like it just didn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense.
By the 4th issue, you're getting like, I mean, there's when they show the Team 7 stuff, you're getting Apocalypse Now and Predator like homages, on those pages and stuff, like.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
So J Scott Campbell, obviously you're a fan. And so I guess looking at this now, you're saying like it's not terrible, it's just not great, and not something you would want to like reread on multiple occasions. It sounds.
Well, like. I mean, I like to look at it, but I'm not going to read too much. I would read some of the first series here and there. I think the most rereadable Gen-13 thing ever done was the trade paperbacks that Adam Warren did. The grunge, the Gen-13 the movie, and then he did a sequel follow up, Roxy, a magical Roxy Queen or whatever. And so this is one of those things where I was like, yeah, if you get Adam Warren writing and even J Scott Campbell drawing, you would have got, I think, a book people remember. You know, but unfortunately, all this stuff, even now when you read it, hinges on you being involved in Wildstorm or Image as a universe, not so much the book as a series with this particular storyline or anything, you know.
So to peek behind the curtain for my life, so a couple, you know, I had this, the only time I can get comic reading, it feels like I can get it done if either I have a day off from work or it's the weekend. Otherwise, just forget it. This isn't going to happen. I didn't get to this until a couple Sundays ago, and my wife was not feeling great, and she promised Lulu, my daughter, she would take her to an indoor playground. So I was like, listen, I'll just take her. You stay here. And I brought this comic, this trade, right? And I'm like, cool. I'll let her just get her. I brought this with me, and I was like,
the original trade.
Yeah, there's no trade. I was like, yeah, I'll sit back, let her just run around with a bunch of kids in an indoor playground that costs like $15 to do. That smells terrible. Anyway, and let's just get her energy out, right? I'll be a good dad. You know, usually I like to be a little more present when I'm, you know, I don't always just bring reading material, but I'd rather do this and be on my phone, obviously. So I'm like, well, I'll just, and they had like, so how it works in this, I forgot what it's called. It's a chain, but they have like it's a big like play area, like there's things you can climb on. And there's a little table area right by the play area that you can kind of sit at. Also seats behind it, right? Like in a walkway between it, you know, whatever, right? So I wanted to sit, you know, where I could, like, you know, put my comic on my table and just kind of hang out and keep my eye on her and just kind of read. And I start reading this comic, and it's so like just like the cover alone, right? And just seeing like Fairchild's, like, you know, these legs are just, you know, half naked women. I mean, it feels like a lot of pages, and I'm just like, ooh, I probably should be reading this out in the middle of like a super pervert, you know, like reading this like very scantily clad women.
Bring your Maxim collection at Chuck E. Cheese, right? Just
pretty much. That's pretty much what happened, Rob. I felt so. I was reading it like this, you know. I was like, like I was literally trying to like hide. I'm like, ugh. So I read 90% of it right there, and then it was time to go by that point. And then I didn't get to read it till like a couple days ago. Anyway, it pretty much was what I expected for the most part, and that was a very 90s experience. Not the best written comic, I would say. You know, it wasn't terrible like you said. Yeah. So wait, was there? Wait. Gen-13. There wasn't a Gen-13 movie, was there?
There was an animated direct-to-video thing that basically, as the story goes, is why Jim Lee eventually sold Wildstorm, because of the debt accrued to make this thing. Initially, he was going to do it independently, and then Disney bought it up and then shelved it because they didn't want the competition. Yeah.
Oh.
And the director of it was a Disney, you know, sort of animator director, and he wanted nothing to do with J Scott Campbell's art style. So it looks like Bruce Timm. It doesn't look anything like Gen-13 in any kind of, like, you would think even if you were to do something kind of cartoony, it might look like something between, I guess, Bruce Timm but maybe more. It would probably lean more towards like Chris Falusi and Ren and Stimpy, you know what I mean? Or Ralph Bakshi, Cool World, right? Like, it probably more Cool World.
Oh, Cool World. All right.
Right? Like, that's what I'm just trying to say. Like, Gen-13, but it does. It's really, really bad. Like, like even more generic. Even more generic. And I've read interviews with that director, and J Scott talks about a little bit he in that interview book with the Comic Craft one where he's just like, yeah, the director wasn't interested in me, move on.
So wait, is this movie available?
I think since then you can bootleg it, or it has come out. I can't remember, but
So wait, so it never.
I saw it at Comic-Con. Like,
so they never. So Disney bought it to basically shelve it because of competition. They never released it.
they didn't release it, or they didn't release it for a long time. You know?
Wow, that's wild. So really quick before I move on, case in point, issue 1 of Gen-13. Look at this. This looks literally like Jim Lee.
By the way, it's on YouTube
Oh, is it?
right now. You can
all
just
right.
type in Gen-13 movie, it'll come up on YouTube.
Okay. This is talk about change. This is literally Jim Lee right here.
Right.
And then now you get J Scott Campbell.
Yeah, totally different, right?
It's totally different.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's the one that, because I read the first 4 issues up at the play place with my daughter, and then I read issue 5 just the other day. Go ahead, sorry.
Have you read the main series?
No, so I'll get to that in a second as we finish up here in a minute. But yeah, I read this. It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't. It's just not great. It's just not. I wanted to ask you. Brendan Choi wrote Wildcats with Jim Lee.
Sure, wrote.
What wasn't so? I want to ask you because you know this. Was he a childhood friend of Jim Lee's?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what happened to him after a while? Did he just leave comics completely?
No one was hiring him after there was after he sold it to DC. Yeah. I mean,
wow.
he's not the guy you want on a new look. Right?
No.
I don't want to be mean, but
yeah.
If people complain about Scott Lobdell's writing compared to Chris Claremont, this is several levels below Scott.
Oh yeah. Lobdell's. I mean, say what you want about Lobdell, but he's a much better writer than Choi.
Brandon Choi wouldn't be able to write Age of Apocalypse like any of it.
No. I love Age of Apocalypse personally. So, I have a fondness for Age of Apocalypse because it's right before I left comics. I left comics a couple years, like a year or so later. So it was like one of my that, and I was I got really into that that whole arc or whatever. Thought it was a really nifty idea. So yeah, it very interesting. It was fun to revisit the 90s, you could say. But here's the thing, Rob. When I started reading this and I got to the end, I went, whatever happened to Gen-13? Because I have no idea.
It became a full series.
Yeah. Well, right. But because Grunge says that, I thought to myself, well, how long did it go for? I looked, I went, holy shit, 77 issues?
Yeah.
I was like, and plus more after that, I was like, what the hell? I see Gail Simone wrote Gen-13 at one point, after they did a reboot or whatever. I was like, what the hell?
And a bunch of spin-offs too,
Yeah, I saw that too. I was like, what the? I'm like, crazy. So tell me this as we wrap up here in a little bit. Was Gen-13 Wildstorm's most successful product?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's what I told you. It's kind of like in some way Top Cow starts off with Cyberforce and all this stuff, but really it becomes the Darkness and Witchblade. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Garth
Ennis.
Hey, after doing all this, trying to be like how I was at Marvel, I found out who I was as an artist, and now that's we're doing that, right?
Is Darkness any good, by the way? I wanted to ask you that. I almost picked it up a couple times.
What do you mean by good? Look, when I say
is it
good,
worth reading?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's like GQ, it's well drawn. Some people would say it's well drawn. Some people would say it's not well drawn. It's
okay.
Very, very bifurcated in that way. I need a comic. For a comic to be that's a good comic, it needed at some point, not the whole way, but at some point, I need a chuckle. Because it's not hard to write or to draw characters looking like badass in slow motion, like Zack Snyder films, right? Like I always said, Zack
Sure.
Snyder is Image Comics and Jim Lee Image Comics essentially on the screen. You know, like that's what
Yeah.
Zack's doing when him and Larry Fong are together. They're doing the slow mo and all that posturing. Yeah, it's great, but can he make you care? Is the question. You know, can I feel like these characters are unique? I think Gen-13 the movie. It's called Gen-13 the movie, the book, but it's not. It's not the animated film. There's the Adam Warren. There's Gen-13 Magical Drama Queen Roxy, and Gen-13 the bootleg. Was it bootleg or movie? No. Whatever. Those I think are worth reading because you're going to get a one shot that has tons. I mean, it's Adam Warren, so you're getting tons of Kung Fu VHS, you know, Jackie Chan references and stuff in there, and you're going to get the sexual innuendo, but it's legitimately funny. It's not cringe, you know.
Okay.
And that's because that guy was doing Dirty Pair, you know, like he's an American artist working in Japan. How many pull that one off, you know?
Yeah. Wow. So Gen-13 lasted. I could not believe 77 issues. Do you know how many issues J Scott Campbell did for that original series?
He did
the ongoing
I think
series?
the first 13 straight. There might be one or two there, and then it's sporadic until issue 25 because he goes to do Danger Girl.
Okay, Danger. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
13 is really his big. He's got a few after that, but 13 is the one everyone sort of remembers. You know?
Interesting. Okay.
And then
like
they almost did a Gen-13 miniseries.
Oh no shit. Okay.
Yeah, it was called Unreal World because you know it's MTV.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that Humberto Ramos from Impulse era. You know.
Oh.
So
okay.
It's right before or after Impulse, and it's before Crimson. So you definitely get that Impulse style Humberto Ramos.
I like the Impulse run.
If you like that Impulse stuff, check out Gen-13 The Unreal World. You will love it.
Right on.
Fantastically drawn, and the coloring's not overdone. It's kind of got like a lighter pastel color to it, so you can see his lines and his layouts. You know.
Ah, okay.
Because a lot of these books, sometimes they were like Uncle Jerk and I went through all the color guide. I got like 4 or 5 Joe Chido color guides, physical ones from like Cyberforce and stuff. But we went through like all the Chido's color guides, and we did a whole show on that. And a lot of these issues of Gen-13 look great in the color guide, and then you could see like the rendering just could not, Photoshop could not, like that in marker looks even better, way better than that, dude. Like, it's crazy.
I'm sure.
Like, but and I could see where they were trying to replicate stuff. But the Gen-13 Unreal World doesn't suffer. It's not as flashy, but I think you'd prefer it now. Like that.
Yeah, Yeah, go ahead. So, you know, did you read any of the later stuff before he sold to DC? I love Gail Simone. She's a great writer, and so
she's
this is like
over at Todd right now on She Spawn, right? Yeah.
Oh no shit. Okay, right on. That's awesome. Yeah, so she has she started rewriting. Did you read any of her stuff for Gen-13?
Well, by the time that came out, no. I mean, look, by 96, 97, I'm like Battle Chasers guy, you know? Like I'm always of the thing where I like the artist to have some input on the story. You know?
Yeah.
Even if they're working with a better writer, I don't like it when it's writer artist. I like it when it's writer and artist and artist. You know, which is why I like Gen-13.
They're together.
3, 4, and 5 more than 1 and 2. So as great as Gale is, like, I'm always like, but not every artist has story in them, you know. So that's not the thing. It's just what just what I lean toward because I know they're gonna draw things they wanted to draw. You know? Like you know, but I remember the later issues, like the last few issues of Gen-13. I think Rick Mays was the artist. And he was doing like an Adam Warren style art style on it, which was interesting. But it's a really weird thing, Paul, because like, much like Wildcats when Travis Charest took over, they lose their costumes at some point.
What? Yeah, I don't get that.
I don't understand why every Image comic or even Marvel comic, they constantly go, you know what? These superhero costumes look stupid. Like they make no sense, so we're gonna put them in real clothes. I'm like, I get that
Why?
for sequence. Even the Unreal World comic does that to an extent. You know, like they're already pretty much wearing normal
Yeah,
clothes.
they're not wearing anything crazy. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, but you got to put the team in the car. You got to have them in the cartoon outfit. So like, because otherwise it's not a comic book. It's like I don't want to see One Punch Man. I mean, yeah, sometimes One Punch Man might be great in normal clothes, but when you want him in the yellow cape and the red, the red cape and the yellow jumpsuit, right? So
I buy a comic for a I buy a superhero comic to see a superhero. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. 1000%. Like I think you bring up a point when I was a kid and I flipped through a comic and if the superhero wasn't in their costume, I wasn't buying it. Period. And dude,
Yeah.
that's straight up like and I and you probably know this about me already. I love costumes. I'm a big costume guy. Like I'm all about superhero costumes. And I did that is so funny you bring that up because like when Quietly and Morrison took over the X-Men and they put them in their 90s out or their movie outfits basically just bummed the hell out of me. I've read a little bit of that run, which is very good what I've read, but I can't sink my teeth into it because it doesn't feel right. Because they're not wearing some colorful costumes. God damn it!
Like I get Savage Dragon because he's green and a fin.
Right, but that's the thing though. Like he already has a costume because he's got, like you say, he's basically the Hulk with a fin on his head. Like
But imagine
Hulk
if
was
Spider-Man's just Peter Parker running around in normal clothes for 50
that'd be
issues.
boring AF.
You'd kill the book. Like
Yeah,
I know.
like
I know.
you can do it for like a minute, maybe a couple issues, but like you need to have the colorful costumes, and yeah, Wildcats definitely suffer from that because Wildcats, they could never figure out what they wanted to do. They're all over the place. I know I have always wanted to read the Alan Moore stuff because I'm sure Alan Moore just made it insanity. Because in the '90s he had no problem being paid to do whatever the hell he wanted with these characters, and so I mean, he took the money and was like, all right, I'm gonna fuck things up, and he did. And so yeah, but
I mean, like I remember thinking that they should have leaned more into gaming at the time, and then
Yeah.
Campbell comes in and starts to put game stuff. But Gen-13 issue 1 literally has Grunge and Roxy playing Mortal Kombat, and then they have to fight the Mortal Kombat characters. I think like Mortal Kombat ish, right?
Yeah.
But then Jim ends up going and doing Divine Right, which is like a World of Warcraft game, like Tron, right? Like you get sort of like a '90s take on Tron. And so like I'd always, as a kid even, I was like, why doesn't they just be like, it could be like video? But I'm a video game guy, so like I was always trying to think of a new angle versus just saying, here's my mutants,
right.
Like, that was the one weird thing. Like, I guess to some extent, if you're known for something, and then you go to do your original, doing something that's adjacent to what you originally did, is a smart business move on some level. However, then you're like always going to be compared to the, you know what I mean? You can't stand on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Larson suffered that with some of the fans I would speak to, because he had done Hulk, right? And so they're like, well, it's just Hulk with a fin, I'm like, it really isn't. Like,
it's not.
Like, it
well,
really,
but
really
aesthetically he is, but I mean, like from like just the way he's built, but the character and the universe that Eric builds is 1000% not even close to Bruce Banner and all that.
It's closer to RoboCop than the Hulk. Let's just be
Oh,
honest.
1000%. Well said. It's Hulk meets RoboCop, basically. That's probably the best way to describe, that stuff. Andreas, I didn't know. I know we talked about Eric Larson. I didn't know you were a Dragon guy. All right.
But I think what you should know, though, my man, like there was a Gen-13 Generation X crossover that eventually happened.
I did see that.
And Art Adams ended up drawing it. So
no shit. Shut the hell up.
Yeah.
No shit. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they must have paid him a grip, dude. And Brandon Choi wrote it, so it's not good to read.
I bet I'll never forget.
You could see Choi doing whatever he's doing the thing, you know, like he's picked up from whatever story notes he got from J Scott, you know.
Dude, I can tell you right now, Mike. Like, I loved that crossover with the issue 2 of Savage Dragon with the turtles and
of the main series.
everything of the main series. Yeah,
issue 4,
yeah.
issue 3 or 4, but yeah. Two was the shrew where he fought him with the chainsaws. Right?
I think you're wrong. I think it's back. It got backwards.
No, that's
I promise you.
I Turtles are issue 2. No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Issue 1's a shrew. Hold on. Yeah, I know my Savage Dragon, Rob. Don't. Yeah, I know better than you realize. No, I loved, dude. Eric Larson.
You're right. Yeah. No. See, it's issue 2. Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. I low key. Fucking Eric Larson can draw the shit out of those turtles, dude. It's so good. It's so good.
He was the best turtles artist to come around at the time since like A.C. Farley and then Bodie and
bro,
and
1000%.
Talbot.
1000%. Yeah. It's crazy.
Like I remember Muppets. Like when I first saw the turtles, I'm like, these are Ninja Muppets. This is before the movie, right? And so in the when there's a thing in the first publishing trade paperback at the end. Kurt Eastman says they're making a Turtles movie and Jim Henson's involved. I'm like, they're literally making Ninja Muppets. Like, I was so excited. But Larson draws them small, like the Muppet size, right? Like, yeah.
Well, they're not like tall, but they're not like
yeah.
Like
they're tiny though.
You're right.
Well, I got a note from Peter Laird on the size of the turtle once, so like.
No shit.
Yeah, because a guy I know, Scott Cohen, he's still drawing, man. He's super dope, dude. He's on Facebook and Instagram. He was drawing the main series. This was like 2003, and everyone that I knew was posting on this thing called Shane Glein's Sketchboard Sessions, and that's where Sean Galloway and Scotty Young, everyone was posting there before it was the place to be. Put it that way, and I was putting up these giant, like, big bulky versions of turtles, like animated style, because I was like, they're always small, what if they're big, and he was like, these are dope, would you like to do a backup story? He's like, there's no money. I'm like, I don't care. I was in college. I'm like, hell fucking yeah, dude. So I did some test pages of like Raphael or Donatello fighting a bunch of foot soldiers and stuff and Shredder, and I sent him over, and Peter Laird goes, they're just too big, kid, they're just too big. No, like, no second chance, to change.
No, are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow. That's weak. That's weak.
Yeah.
Dude, but that makes sense because I remember looking at, there's a page where it's like a it's like a bigger panel. It's like towards the end of the book, and it's kind of like a wider shot of them, like a mid-wide, medium, like kind of like a, not like super far away, but like, medium shot way you could say. And I remember them being like just about a chest high to Savage Dragon. Like up, like,
But to get to the point, I mean, like, to get back on the top, we'll talk about Savage Dragon some, but to talk about Gen-13,
yeah, we will.
There was also a thing called Gen-13 bootleg, which I don't know if you've ever heard of, but
I've never heard of this. No,
it was kind of like Legends of the Dark Knight, where they get different artists on board,
okay.
Like, there'd be different versions, and it was just kind of weird because, like, I guess at the time I just felt like, I guess everyone, I don't know, like, I think the problem with these books was overexposure,
Yeah.
Like, they're putting them in, like, again, if you got Gen-13 and it's working, then just have the Gen-13 book, but there's Gen-13 Gen-13 that, Gen-13
you gotta make that money. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy, like how many of those, I guess, to feed the system, or whatever.
Well, wasn't like this at this point, like Wildstorm was like everyone was kind of struggling independently of each other, kind of thing. At this point, like, because that's like what late '90s of that, and that's when things started going.
But I bring up bootleg because that's where it was called Grunge the movie. So the Adam Warren issues appear in Gen-13 bootleg, and then they got collected into a trade paperback. But it was issues 8, 9, and 10. And to me, like, that's like Like you want TNA superheroes, that's it. You know, like and he's been doing Empowered now for forever. And like so this is like that Empowered humor before that, but it's got more like Tarantino vibes in it than just sexual like cheeky stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? But
yeah. No, totally.
Yeah, but I just think Adam Warren probably should have been writing all these, you know.
Well, yeah,
at the very least, you know, like because like clearly, but it's really dope. There's some really great in Grunge the movie, trade paperback. There's really good like cinematic, like this is like a film, like they put movie trailer style like layouts in the book. They're film strip, like film strip panels, like. It is the lettering is fantastic. You know, hand drawn letter. It's really quite amazing. But it has those anime faces. So you know, people in the States, I just can't stand looking at them. And then now all they like is I only like anime, American comics, right? Like how funny that happened, right? Like, not
dude, it's true. You're not wrong. I mean, friend, like yeah. No, please, your friend, what? Well, go ahead.
I had a friend, when I was a senior, he was a freshman. His name was Pete. And probably got to hook back up with him when I was in Comic-Con for Spawn. And, but he was all about only manga and anime, you know? And I'm more like a hybrid, right? I want both.
Yeah.
But I took him to Comic-Con in '96, and he was just like showing off his stuff, and every editor told him, never manga is never gonna make it in the States. It's got no future, kid.
Wow.
And I saw the look on his face, and I told him this, like the look of like he was real. He stopped drawing like a year later, man. You know, like by the time I'm not in his life and he's on his own because I graduated, and you know, and he's at school, he just moved on to other things. And I'm telling you, and I told him I saw it happen right there. You know, like you have no future in this. And so I'm very. So even now, when an art style comes around or a movement comes around that maybe you don't get into, but kids love it, man, I'll never tell them ain't no future in it, you know? You ain't got no future, Jack, you know? Like, you're an A1 nutcase, you know? Like I just...
Great line.
But now, these days, it would be like K-pop Demon Hunters, right? Like,
love K-pop.
Look at Gen-13 and look at K-pop.
Dude,
look at
Word.
It. Think about J Scott Campbell and that mixture of Asian and American cartooning with stylized characters, and they're singing and dancing and doing cheeky humor. This actually is here. So in that sense, 30 years ago, right? You know, it's occurring in comics, but nobody, you know, it's because I think primarily, dude, people act like historians when it comes to comics, and I think they forget the enthusiasm of what it was like to be a fan at the time.
You couldn't have said it any better, because the 90s, there was a difference between like us, Rob, the fans who were younger, that didn't have the grudge that like the people above us, you know, that were older than us in the world, didn't have this whole like just kind of bitterness about whatever it was. We were more earnest in what we loved. And there wasn't a lot of elitism. We, at least in my, you know, for our age group, for the most part, there wasn't a lot of elitism, like it was in the, you know, the older crowds.
There was, in terms of like, you had like, I had a friend named Bruce Speed, because one of the few guys I ever met who had to say his first and last name every time you met him, right? Because he was Asian. He always did karate. He was super cool, man. And but he was like, I'm Bruce Speed, and I'm like, all right, Bruce. But he was like Jim Lee, and he didn't want to look at any Rob Liefeld. You understand what I'm saying? Like
no, then, I get it, yeah.
And then I'm like, I like Jim, you know, but I buy Savage Dragon every month. You know, I buy Bone and Spawn, you know, like Impulse, you know, like and so like I could cross over, but there were territorial. But I know what you mean. There was a divide between the 80s fans and the 90s fans.
Yes, and I think that's where, you know, because in people like us, especially like me, I kind of went in between there, and I went from 80s to the 90s as a fan and as a young fan, and I loved it. and it was weird to see people just trash on the things I love. Like I love the Tom DeFalco, Paul Ryan, Fantastic Four, and elitist wizard to be like, this is garbage, blah blah blah. And it's
well,
like
I got into it with the wizard guy in like '96 or
no way.
I got in because Wizard had a booth there, and one dude was there talking about how everything was trash, and so I was like, I don't see any difference. I said this is like the '70s. We're in like the '70s now, is what I told him because my uncle Dennis specifically bought nothing but Howard the Duck, so I read all the Howard the Ducks, and I'm like, the humor in Gen-13. Right, the humor in Savage Dragon is Howard the Duck style humor. You know what I mean? Like it's this cheeky innuendo, meta like stuff, that kind of should be Mad Magazine, but it's also playing somewhat serious.
Right.
I don't see how that's any different. Like the crazy costumes of Wildcats. Go look at Giant Size X-Men #1. The Dave Cockrum style costumes there's nothing tactical about it. There's nothing realistic about what Storm's wearing, she's half naked.
No.
Like I think what happened, and it happens for every generation, really, is they just go, well, that was mine and I don't relate to this anymore. And I'm very
yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
Whereas
Dude.
in gaming, a lot of you get that, but a lot of you have games preservation. And games preservation people are like, oh man, we gotta have these games available so we can enjoy the classics and the greats. Comics doesn't really work that way. It's like this era was great and everything after that is trash. It's more like music, right?
Yeah.
Like when there's no good music being made today, right? And I'm like, are you out of your mind? Maybe it's not the top 10, but Big Wreck just put out an album, and don't tell me that shit wasn't dope. I don't know what you're talking. There's something for everyone right now. It's just not in the top 10, being shoved in front of your face, probably,
Well, and obviously at times, back then we only had certain outlets to get new comics and new material. Now, if you want, there's comics all over the place you can get, whether it be major, independent, like superhero.
There's Instagram comics I read, dude. There's comics on Instagram, and they're they're hilarious,
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like music is all the same thing, and I think right now, like you make a great point. It drives me nuts. My wife's the same way. She's like, "There's no good music." Blah blah blah. I'm just like, get over yourself. Like it's not that bad, And comics the same way. Like people who think the comics are worse now than they were back then, I feel are not paying attention.
Every generation has its slop and its brilliantness, to it, and it's
amen.
And you can't, you can't say that it's not there or one's better or worse than the other, because there was so much crap in the 80s. You couldn't read a Batman comic in the 80s, and for the most of the 90s even you couldn't,
Yeah, exactly.
Dark Knight Returns was one little thing, man. Go open up Batman 298 and tell me what the frick happened, Right. Come on, man.
Well, that's good. I think it's a good way to wrap it up on. This is I always have a blast just because again, you're a walking comic history.
No.
To me.
No.
Yeah. No, you are.
Comic
you
artist, maybe, not comic books. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say both. I'd say both. But I love doing shows with you because we can reminisce. Talk. Again, I always learn something new from you. Always. I can always count on Rob teaching me something, and taught me a lot today. And so, tell people. I mean, do you have any projects you can talk about right now? I don't know. So.
Well, right now I have a variant cover coming out on April.
I saw that
8th for the I Hate Image team ups or I Hate team ups. There's 6 covers, I think, with Gert and another book, right? And so I'm doing one for Spawn. It's just got it's got Spawny or little chibi Spawn on the cover. It's like a gag cover. Mm-hmm. It's not this crazy, it's just some fun little gag kind of humor thing. So that's coming out. So if you want to support me there, you can pre-order that. That's for Spawn issue 374. Sketchcraft variant cover. And I drew and colored that. So there's that. You can also pick up Berserk Boy on any PS5, PS4. It's on digital stores. There's physical Yeah, Berserk Board. Thank you so much. Yeah, you could pick that up. That would help support. And you can get the Spawn Kills Every Spawn trade paperback available at Amazon or I go to In Stock Trades, wherever you want to go.
I love In Stock Trades. I wish they'd sponsor me, but I don't have enough
sadly,
following.
I will not be at any conventions because I don't make any money. It costs me money to go to cons.
That sucks.
I wish, folks, I'm not the guy who can take 100 prints and mobilize them across the country and set up shop, right? Like it's not me. So I end up just doing commissions at con, which I can just do from home. Like it just doesn't make any.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
But you can find me posting nearly every other day or weekly on my socials. You can go to sketchcraft.com and all the links are there. There you go.
And by the way, and for those who haven't seen it yet, he just posted some Watchmen shit that was just off the chain. So good. So go check that out.
Oh yeah, it's a 3-piece Dr. Manhattan triptych. Let's see if this thing will actually show up. It probably won't. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, it won't show up here. It's the way the camera works. But yeah, I'm physically coloring this son of a bitch. So like it
Damn.
Yeah.
Dude, the stuff you posted online is effing dope. So it's super good. So yeah, I think the next episode we have, I sense a theme of image here, and I think we may have to start doing like I'm not sure if you follow us on or know what we do. We do like a issue by issue for Grant Morrison, I'm not saying we do that for Savage Dragon, but we may have to do like
278 issues of Savage Dragon.
I mean, what I think we should do is just do like, let's start with the miniseries. It has issue 0 in it first, and we can kind of maybe
issue 0 came out like 7 years after the miniseries. That's not really quite fair.
Okay, not 0. What I'm thinking of, the issue where Shelley, whatever her name, dies.
Miniseries, yes.
Because there was an issue where the girlfriend dies that doesn't happen. I never saw it until the trade.
Right. Because he did it for the trade, and then it became like a 0 issue, or it was one or the other, like however that worked out.
So you know what I'm saying. No, hold on. It was for Image 0, but not Savage Dragon 0.
I have Image 0 right there, so like...
Hold on, let me go grab. I'll grab it right now. 1 second.
He's got to make a point, folks.
I have to.
He's got to make a point.
I can't do this. Hold on.
Hey, people don't know the Savage Dragon hardcover has a bunch of really great. The first one has a bunch of really great marker comps that Eric did, so I highly recommend picking that up.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that one.
Case in point.
Yeah.
By the way, this cover, goated, dude.
Yeah.
Great cover. All right, hold on. Let's see here. We're looking at. Well, tell me, goddamn, just tell me what's in the issue. Goddamn it.
Oh, there's no table of contents.
Hold on. I'm gonna find it. Da, ba, 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 ba. Maybe you're right. God damn it. I'm looking for. Hold on. It's gotta be the very end. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. So this whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish you would tell me. We'll have to go online. Either way, I'm pretty sure it's Image 0. It has to be. So I'm gonna go there. We'll see. I know. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. I could be wrong. Anyway, we're gonna do that hopefully soon at some point in the next. Hopefully, my goal will be the summertime.
He did an issue 0. It just came out years later.
Right, but there's an Image 0 and a Savage Dragon 0.
Right, but right. Image 0 is a whole different thing, man. Like that.
Is it? Am I getting them all crossed up?
Yeah, he put a legitimate story in there, and it was how she died or whatever, and it pissed everyone off because it was so you could only get it with the coupon, which I got, and it took 3 years to get, and like you could never buy it anywhere else. So he ended up putting it in that trade because no one could read it because it was in Image 0.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, Image 0 is this right here, man.
Okay, so wait, I am kind of right. It was Image 0.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's back.
That makes sense.
I got it facing a certain way. But Image 0 was supposed to have a story by each one of the creators, and they didn't.
Right.
Todd and them were just like, I'm not doing it. And Larson was the only one who put a real story in there. Like, and it's like a legitimate, like, kind of need to know this.
It's a big thing.
Right. But there is an actual Savage Dragon Zero, which shows once he reveals who Dragon really was. Savage Dragon issue 0 shows him as the space conqueror and falling to Earth and all that stuff. Like, so when he did it, Savage Dragon issue 0, the last page of that was the first page of the miniseries.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Right on. Well, so me and Rob meet up next time, unless something crazy happens and you get on for something else. This is the issue. This is what we're going to be reading next time.
And again, folks, I recommend if you haven't checked out Gen-13, Grunge the movie, or Roxy Magical Drama Queen, and Gen-13 and Real World, check those 3 things out.
All right. Well, Rob, as always, really appreciate you coming on and spending your time on the show, and thanks for being patient with me. But I definitely feel like we have to get Savage Dragon in because I grew up on it, and I want to keep reading it. It kind of not traumatized me, but we'll talk about it a little bit later on. But anyway, thanks for joining us. Chris isn't here, so I'll say it for him. Read more comics, please.